Bill Burr pointing out the incompetence of online personalities when it comes to the handling of the LA fires has upset professional right-wing victim Matt Walsh. This shouldn't come to any surprise, really, as Walsh, like most right-wing commentators today, thrives on outrage. It's their bread and butter. When someone like Burr, a comedian who's known for his no-nonsense approach, takes aim at the shallow tactics of online grifters, it's bound to ruffle feathers. What makes this even more ironic is that Walsh, who loves dishing out criticism to anyone who disagrees with his rigid worldview, suddenly becomes a delicate flower the moment the joke could be related to him. But maybe this time is different, and Bill Burr actually has taken it too far. Maybe Bill has actually gone way too leftist and needs to be reined in. Let's take a listen and see what has made Walsh so upset.
Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet, you know?
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean? And then just, I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds? You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic?
How are you?
This was definitely mismanaged.
That's a big word we're hearing now.
Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA, sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
So there's no real punchline there. There's no setup. There's no humor of any kind. He's just mocking the idea that normal people could possibly be qualified to judge or even notice outrageous incompetence in the leadership class. Even when that incompetence is burning down their city, Bill Burr thinks it's absurd for anyone on the internet to point that out. And this is a lecture that Burr is delivering after anonymous people on the internet have been proven again and again to be more reliable than the so-called experts on everything from COVID to Russian disinformation to January 6th, to gender, and so on. It's about as tone-deaf and out of date as you can get. But to Bill Burr, I mean, this is the cutting edge of comedy. What's especially embarrassing about this is that if Burr actually cared about comedy and satire, there's a lot of material that he could be working with. It wouldn't make the political elites of Los Angeles very happy to hear it, but that's the whole point. For example, here's new reporting from Michael Schellenberger, quote, as fires raged and LA Mayor Karen Bass attended a cocktail party in Ghana, her deputy mayor for public safety was also unavailable because of an FBI raid at his house in connection to an investigation regarding a bomb threat that he allegedly made against City Hall.
Now, what does any of that have to do with Bill Burr? Should there be some accountability for Karen Bass and others in leadership? Of course, but what does that have to do with Burr pointing out idiots online, like Walsh, making dumb comments?
Now, I'll say that again. While the city was catching on fire, the mayor of Los Angeles was attending a cocktail party in Africa, a country she promised she'd stop visiting once she was elected mayor. And at the same time, the deputy mayor for public safety in Los Angeles was on leave following an FBI raid on his house related to a bomb threat that he allegedly made against City Hall. So nobody was paying attention to the fires because, the leadership in LA was either being investigated by the feds or in Africa. So it sounds like it's too absurd to be real, but it is. It's the kind of thing that actual comics could have a field day with. And of course, there were many more stories like this. There was Gavin Newsom telling the desperate woman that he was on the phone with Joe Biden, only to admit that he didn't actually have any cell service when she asked to see the phone. There's also the overweight lesbian fire chief who proudly stated that it's your fault if you get trapped in a fire, and so on and so on. But none of these comedic scenarios would play well on Reddit, so Bill Burr didn't bring any of them up. Instead, he attacked safer targets like Fox News and the insurance companies. Watch.
I love how all the chatter out there is about bands of illegal immigrants and homeless people lighting fires. They light fires every day. They're living outside. They're cold. And this theory that some homeless guy without a car went from Altadena all the way to the Pacific Palisades, and then we have a hang glider. And they're talking about looting, but CNN and Fox News are not going to bring up the insurance companies that are just going to keep everybody's premiums and still give themselves a bonus. Yeah. Yes. Free Luigi. I love how they acted surprised. Why did that happen? I have no idea. He wrote on the bullets why it happened.
So this is an attempt at humor that doesn't even make sense. He begins by acknowledging that homeless people and illegal migrants set fires all over the place all the time because, they want to stay warm. But then he says that it's totally absurd to conclude that these fires could have been set by homeless people or illegal immigrants because there was more than one fire in Los Angeles and they were far apart. Apparently, you're supposed to dismiss the possibility that there might be more than one homeless person or illegal alien setting fires in Los Angeles. And then you're supposed to laugh, I guess. Then everything somehow goes downhill from there. He starts talking about how the insurance companies are stealing premiums. Then he says that the psychotic trust fund kid who murdered a health insurance CEO should be freed because a lot of other psychopaths on the internet were saying that a month ago. This is comedy, you see. You're supposed to find this amusing. Now, again, the point of the humor here is to defend California's political elite. It was California's politicians who prevented insurance companies from setting higher rates for disaster coverage. So the insurance companies did the rational thing, which was to cancel a lot of policies for homes in Pacific Palisades because they predicted a devastating fire was likely to occur. And instead of doing anything with this information, city officials didn't make sure the reservoir was full. They didn't fully staff the fire department. Instead, they flew to Africa and called in bomb threats to City Hall. And yet Bill Burr won't make any kind of jokes about those city officials. He lets them off the hook entirely because those officials are Democrats. And Bill Burr is now a partisan hack.
What he does here is very typical of most right-wing commentators, where they don't actually address what is being said. Matt Walsh doesn't argue any of the merits of what Bill Burr said, and instead he twists them so it fits the narrative he wants to push.
That's what he's devolved into. As I said, there have been signs that this would happen for several years. Back in 2019, for his Paper Tiger special, Burr went out of his way to defend the BLM narrative surrounding Colin Kaepernick, who, again, was maybe the single easiest target for mockery that you could imagine. But here's what Bill Burr did with it.
No, everything has just become absolutes in the States. It's nuts. Like that Colin Kaepernick guy, right? You knew when he was like protesting during the national anthem, no one was going to listen to what the he had to say, no matter how much he explained it. He goes, I'm taking a knee during the national anthem. This is a protest about police brutality, the way people of color are treated. We'd like to open a dialogue. He got about halfway through that. People are like, my brother's fighting in Iraq, you piece of shit. It's just like, buddy, nobody is saying your brother isn't in Iraq fighting. You're not listening. This is about police brutality. My brother's a firefighter. He watched 9/11 on television. No, buddy. Nobody's saying that your brother's not a firefighter. I got a bone spur in my heel. I can still stand up during the dog. Buddy, nobody is saying you can't see a podiatrist. All right? You're not listening.
So this is a comedian who's basically promoting the leftist concept of centering. I mean, he did everything but actually use that phrase. Those racist, ignorant white people are always trying to center themselves, not listening to the plight of the multimillionaire quarterback. They don't care about the made-up fact that police officers are killing black people all the time. That's the joke. Hilarious. This is a routine that feels like it was intended for the faculty lounge at, say, Vassar, but Bill Burr apparently thought that he had a winner with this one. He said something similar on his podcast at the time, quote, for me personally, I'm a white male heterosexual. I can basically, within reason, do whatever the F I want to do. Here's a guy who's making zillions of effing dollars and still feels this way. This is, I should probably shut the F up and listen to what he has to say. That's your edgy, unwoke comedian there. In other words, it can't possibly be that the guy is rich and wrong about this, trying to stay relevant. That's not possible. No rich person would ever push a false racial narrative in exchange for fame and even more wealth.
Walsh attempts to paint Colin kneeling as him wanting to become more famous, when at the time, he was the fucking starting quarterback for the 49ers. He completely ignores Burr's point of people being all or nothing and blowing up small disagreements to then be all or nothing and compare Colin kneeling to someone faking a hate crime. Does he even have a valid argument at this point?
In 2010, for example, Burr did a special called Let It Go. It's worth watching if you find the time. One of the main themes of the special is that he's over 40 and still doesn't have kids. It's not some hour-long morality play about the importance of having kids or anything like that, but not that it would be wrong to talk about the importance of having kids, but but it's a comedy, and it does wring out a lot of humor out of the situation in a kind of self-deprecating way. Certainly not lecturing anyone about how important it is to be loyal Democrat Party operatives. And he also threw in some material about the arbitrary nature of race politics and racial guilt, which was ahead of its time. So here's that part, just to give you an idea of what it's like.
I find a lot of that racial stuff like fascinating. You know, like the different rules of like who gets in trouble, who doesn't. Like I've noticed black people have the genius to put the curse word after they say the race of the person, where white dudes, we always put it in front. And if we would just make that little adjustment, we could say.
So now that's actually funny, and it points out the kind of arbitrary rules that we have for language and the way that we treat different races and all that. It's funny. It's a funny observation. And watching that clip, it's not hard to see that Bill Burr's downfall is even more tragic than Howard Stern. I mean, Howard Stern was always a freak, as we've discussed before. The guy was always just a disgusting creep. But Burr at one point had genuine talent. He wasn't going for the lowest common denominator, and
And there you have it. Proof that the loudest voices crying about snowflakes melt the fastest when the heat's on them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Until next time, stay sharp and don't let the grifters get you down.